What if one of humanity's greatest mysteries isn't hidden inside ancient manuscripts or buried beneath lost civilizations, but in the astonishing fact that people separated by thousands of years, living on different continents, speaking different languages, following different religions, and having no way to communicate with one another, keep describing remarkably similar experiences, not just what they encounter, but how they describe reality itself? Most people assume this conversation is simply about psychedelics or altered states of consciousness. It isn't. Psychedelics are simply one modern doorway into a mystery that has fascinated humanity since the beginning of recorded history. For thousands of years, prophets, mystics, monks, philosophers, shamans, and ordinary people have described experiences that seem to exist far beyond ordinary human awareness. Different eras, different cultures, different belief systems, no internet, no shared scientific framework, yet remarkably similar descriptions continue to appear. That is where the mystery begins. Now, before we go any further, it's important to be clear about what this video is and what it isn't. This is not an attempt to claim that psychedelics prove religion. It is not an argument that biblical prophets were using substances. And it is not an attempt to prove that any one tradition possesses the complete truth. The real question is much more interesting. Why do so many people across history report such strikingly similar experiences after entering profoundly expanded states of consciousness? Perhaps the similarities are coincidence. Perhaps they're rooted in the architecture of the human brain. Or perhaps they're pointing towards something about reality that we still don't understand. The anatomy of the experience, across thousands of modern reports, from near-death experiences, deep meditation, mystical prayer, and psychedelic reports, the exact same themes emerge again and again. People describe entering a reality that feels more real than ordinary life, not dreamlike, not imaginary, not intoxicated. Quite the opposite. Again and again, people report feeling more awake, more conscious, more alive. Former intelligence officer Chase Hughes described his extended DMT experience in remarkably similar terms. Rather than believing he had experienced a hallucination, he explained that ordinary waking life afterward felt like the reduced version, as though everyday reality were like playing a low-resolution video game compared with experiencing reality directly. Many describe an overwhelming feeling of coming home, not arriving somewhere new, but returning to a place that feels strangely familiar, as though they had always belonged there, but somehow forgotten. Time no longer moves in a straight line. Past, present, and future seem to exist simultaneously. Knowledge doesn't arrive through conversation or words. It simply appears, complete, immediate, and deeply understood. And then comes perhaps the most fascinating pattern of all. When people return, they struggle to explain what happened. Again and again, they say the same thing. There are no words. Language, the tool we evolved to describe ordinary physical survival, simply reaches its limit. Ancient voices, modern echoes now compare those modern reports with ancient texts. The similarities become difficult to ignore. The Book of Enoch describes journeys through multiple heavens, radiant beings, immense celestial structures, and knowledge that transcends human understanding. Interestingly, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved the Book of Enoch as scripture for centuries, even as it disappeared from the biblical canon of most other traditions. The prophet Ezekiel struggles with the exact same problem. Again and again he writes, "It was like the appearance of," it looked as if. Rather than describing reality directly, he reaches for desperate comparisons. Ordinary language no longer seems capable of expressing what he witnessed. The Book of Revelation follows the same pattern. John describes overwhelming light, a sea like crystal, living creatures covered in eyes, thunder, voices, and heavenly cities of impossible beauty. The Apostle Paul writes that he was caught up to the third heaven. When he returns, he says he heard inexpressible things that simply cannot be communicated through human language. Outside the Bible, the pattern is identical. The Tao Te Ching opens with one of philosophy's most famous lines: "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." The ancient Upanishads describe Brahman as beyond words, beyond thought, and beyond ordinary concepts. Different civilizations, different continents, different religions, separated by centuries and thousands of miles, yet they all point toward the exact same limitation. What science is discovering. When you step back, you realize people aren't just reporting wild stories. They are repeatedly describing 4 distinct transformations. Consciousness expands, reality feels more real, time dissolves, and awareness increases. Language breaks down. Every culture hits the exact same linguistic dead end. There are no words. Knowledge arrives instantly. Understanding is downloaded directly without speech. Reality becomes highly ordered. Spaces appear as crystalline worlds, living architecture, and sacred geometry. So, how does modern science explain these 4 recurring patterns? 3 fascinating possibilities emerge. The neurobiological filter. Is the human brain simply pre-programmed to produce this exact landscape under specific biological conditions? In neuroscience, studies show that during deep meditation, near-death states or psychedelic states, a central network shuts down, the default mode network. This network acts as the brain's reducing valve, a filter that maintains our ego, our sense of time, and keeps us focused strictly on daily survival. When this filter turns off, the visual and spatial centers of the brain synchronize in unconstrained ways. In this view, the impossible place is simply what human consciousness looks like from the inside when its everyday survival filter is removed. Higher dimensional geometry. What if these accounts are describing physical reality beyond 3 spatial dimensions? Theoretical models like string theory suggest our universe isn't limited to 3 spatial dimensions. It may contain 10 or 11 dimensions existing at angles our eyes cannot register. To understand what happens when a higher dimension touches a lower one, imagine a 2-dimensional creature living on a flat sheet of paper. If a 3-dimensional sphere passed through that paper, the flat creature wouldn't see a sphere. It would see a point appear out of nowhere, expand into a morphing circle, and shrink into nothingness. To the flat creature, it looks like an impossible, shape-shifting object defying physics, but it's just a 3D object passing through a 2D world. If a 4-dimensional structure intersected with our 3D awareness, our brains could never render it all at once. We would see shifting 3D slices, breathing architecture, nested wheels, and impossible hypergeometry. You wouldn't be hallucinating. You'd be looking at a 3D shadow projection of a higher dimensional universe. The user interface theory third. Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman offers a radical perspective. Evolution didn't shape our senses to see objective reality. Instead, our brains construct a user interface like a computer desktop. Space, time, physical objects, and words aren't reality itself. They are just desktop icons, simplified shortcuts designed strictly to help us survive, while hiding the incomprehensible code running underneath. Under extreme conditions, that user interface glitches or turns off entirely. And for a brief, startling moment, human awareness looks past the icons and stares directly at the raw code of existence behind the screen. What is reality telling us? We simply don't know which explanation is true. What do you believe? What do you think explains these extraordinary similarities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them, and if you enjoyed this exploration into consciousness, philosophy, and ancient mysteries, make sure to subscribe to the channel.